There are two kind of events we have in this globe. So the first kind of event is when it is to be done in silos. Example, Steve Jobs decided to go ahead with iPhone. Mr. Bill Gates decided to go ahead with operating system. And different innovators at different point of time decided to go ahead with a different product. That is a different thing that till the time Steve Jobs was there, Apple was launching almost a new product every month. And after Steve Jobs, Apple is well managing the old products. So that's a difference. But there are many instances whereby a global approach is required. So silos is good, but silos is not workable. It is not a perfect fit solution. And standing today, there are many things where we require a global approach. So example, reg reporting, which is shortly known as regulatory reporting. But that's a different topic. For that, we need to spend many hours, and then in that we would be able to explain you. The more important thing today, we are going to discuss about the DLT frameworks, which is distributed ledger technology frameworks, and that too specifically from financial sector point of view. So this series is actually divided into three parts: the part 1, part 2, and part 3. So the three parts, the part 1 would be covering the basics, part 2 would be covering the advanced, and part 3 would be covering the conclusion. So between two parts we have a break, small break. What happened that the financial sector across the globe is very fragmented. That is a different thing that even today in 21st century, when the world is talking about Reuters, Bloomberg, execution management system, order management system, and hell lot of stuff, the financial sector is extremely fragmented. Example, today I was reviewing or I was looking at the annual report by McKinsey, 2009 banking report by McKinsey, and it states that around 60% of the banks of the globe might not survive this downturn. And this report, when they actually drafted this report, the Chinese coronavirus was not taken into the account. I don't know what would be the look like of this report and what would be the final evaluation when the Chinese coronavirus would take into consideration. But having said that, if you go to take Chinese coronavirus, then this 60% may go up to 80%. And I believe that around 60-65% of the European banks will not survive in next 2 to 3 years. Personally speaking, Treasury Consulting feel that European banks will face a huge consolidation. So as Indian banks, and preferably one or two Singaporean banks will also face consolidation in another few years. But that's a completely different topic. When it comes to the financial management, we need to understand that financial management or the financial market is completely depend upon the maturity and saturity level of that market. Example, United States, example, London, example, Luxembourg, Frankfurt, I would say China, Hong Kong, Singapore, who are also known as the global financial center. Every year there is a report came, that report talks about the global financial center. But unfortunately the biggest mistake of this report, it only provides the ranking of global financial center. It do not provide the granularity of that global financial center. When it comes to granularity, only one report is granular, and that is nothing but the BIS, Bank for International Settlement Triennial Survey. So which actually they done in 3 years. So the last triennial survey, it happened in 2019, and next is going to happen in 2022, practically 2.5 years from now. Now when we come to US having everything. They do have mutual funds, they do have pension funds, they do have hedge funds, they do have big robo-advisor, Vanguard, PIMCO and all. They do have structured derivatives, they do have prop desk, also known as proprietary desk. They do have government agencies, Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae. They do have a very good central bank, Federal Reserve, and what not. Basically, what not. You know, I don't know what is your opinion about Donald Trump. Neither I wanted to make this video a politically motivated video, as always our principle is, but we believe that after Donald Trump, whatever his personal life may be, we don't know, but after Donald Trump, there is a lot of formulation happened in the United States economy, and United States benefited from Donald Trump. That's a different thing, impeachment or no impeachment, or his behavior of writing Twitter messages in the late night. That's a completely different thing. But overall, I give him 8.5 out of 10. When it comes to London, we have a big market of custody, we have big market of bank, proprietary trading desk is not there except few in the later part of the Europe. But US do not have one thing very much, which is crypto. Europe do have a consolidated command on crypto. US also have a very substantial presence in custody. Europe also having more substantial presence in custody. When we come to Asia, the scene completely changed, because here only 2 or 3 countries are dominating that financial sector market, and unfortunately one country, in fact 2, are reeling or facing their different crises. Hong Kong is facing crisis. I need not to tell you what kind of crisis we have in Hong Kong. And Singapore is facing the crisis of rigidity. Every day 1 or 2 company is either shutting down in Singapore, or they are firing people, banks are firing people, publication houses are firing people, almost everyone firing people. Majority of the startups in Singapore is facing huge losses. In fact, today I was looking at report that countries having the best ecosystem for startup, the first rank was given to United States, the second rank to UK, even though UK is out of European Union. Third is to Canada, and fourth is to, first is United States, second UK, third Canada, and fourth is Israel. I was surprised to see that on one side, Singapore claimed that they got 15 billion plus as a foreign direct investment or funding into the startup in the fintech sector in 2019, and I don't know how come they are not in the list of the top 4. They should be in the top 4, but that's a completely different thing. But if we holistically look at the financial sector, need the following people even after 10 years, even when I am not going to be there. We need hedge funds, we need venture capitalists, we need private equity, we need mutual funds, we need structured derivatives, we need pension funds, we need central bank, and more importantly, we need the depository institutions, and we need custodians apart from the banks. These we know. But there are some actions in the globe which cannot be taken without a dual or the common consensus. Example, IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard. There is a body to it, which is International Accounting Standard Board. Whatever decision is taken by International Accounting Standard Board is abide to everyone across the globe, because they are the custodians of IFRS. Similarly, this week DTCC, Depository Trust Corporation, launched a working paper wherein they talked about the DLT framework. Basically, they were very specific and they were to the point. From the very first line, they were talked about the security of the DLT framework. I read this paper word by word, and few of the content I have taken from this paper which we need to acknowledge. But I felt that in this paper multiple mistakes happened, and at least I never expected this from DTCC. The reason is DTCC is the largest custody player we have in the globe. Largest central security depository we have in the globe. I don't know how many of you know or not, but DTCC is not only CST, but DTCC is CCP also. So CCP stands for Central Clearing Counterparty. DTCC is that level of organization that if DTCC close, then I think US government will do everything to build DTCC. So there are few players who make their presence in such a way that if they fail, it would be end of show. If Goldman Sachs fail, JP Morgan Chase fail, DTCC fail, I would say CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange fail, London Mercantile Exchange fail, few players make themselves in such a way that God forbid if anything happened, then it would be end of show for whole globe. But there are multiple issues which we have. The issues is that if DTCC, while DTCC did two things in last 2 weeks. Number one, they launched an API platform. In fact, I should say API marketplace, application programming interface, whereby DTCC come in public domain and was very clear from the first day that we are going to be focusing API about the financial market. And they were very clear that initially we are focusing about risk management in the financial market. I don't know what kind of API they are looking for risk management, because majority of the application programming interface which we have in the financial management, they serve more or less the same thing. But there is nothing much they are serving, not much difference, plus minus 5% of difference. So when DTCC launched the DLT framework, distributed ledger technology, DTCC, in the whole working paper, I have not seen anywhere wherein DTCC is asking for recommendation. Number one, big mistake. Of course, Treasury Consulting would be writing to DTCC on Monday about the major flaws which they put in the working paper. Nowhere they mentioned the interlinkage of DTCC with multiple players like custody, just like CCP. DTCC is amongst the largest CCP we have in the globe. And once you are moving to the DLT framework, which is distributed ledger technology framework, you not mentioned anything about the CCP role, how DLT would enter into the CCP and how DTCC would be linking this with that. That is a very shameful, at least for me, from a DTCC side. It is just like, I am a restaurant and I am doing some form of advertisement, but what I did, I have not put my name on that advertisement, but I'm just saying I sell this, but what is the name of my restaurant is not there. Now that is height of stupidity. So we feel that when it comes to the DLT based framework, we need the following. Number one, DLT based framework cannot be acted or enacted until the global regulatory is in sync, which is very, very difficult, because Federal Reserve thinking towards DLT is completely different. European Central Bank different, Bank of England different, Reserve Bank of India not in the picture, Monetary Authority of Singapore extremely rigid body, Project Tubin out of scope, Project eKYC already failed, first phase already failed. So to bring all regulatory at one place, it is humongous job. And in this whole working paper, I have not saw a single place wherein DTCC is asking or inviting, or in fact in an indirect way or a direct way, ask the global regulatory to come and talk. And this is the biggest catch DTCC left with, because until you have the regulatory with you, whatever you do, you cannot make it happen, else you need to go to the court. As simple as that. This is first thing. Another thing, the financial architecture across the globe is changing at a very faster pace, not only from a functional side but also from a technological side. Example. And when we talk about technology, people feel that technology is all about blockchain. No, technology is not all about blockchain. Blockchain and DLT is one thing. Technology is another thing. Example, in October 2021, when the whole world will say goodbye to LIBOR, London Interbank Offer Rate, the world will welcome around 9 different rates. And these 9 different rates are ONIA covering Australian dollar, CORA covering Canadian dollar, SARON which is covering Swiss franc, ESTR which is covering Euro, SONIA which is covering GBP, HONIA, Hong Kong Interbank, Hong Kong Overnight which covering Hong Kong dollar, TONA which covering Japanese yen, and very important SOFR, Secured Overnight Financing Rate, which cover US dollar. If you look at all these currency, you will not get Singapore dollar. Number one, it is out of context. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, Swiss franc, euro, GBP, Hong Kong dollar, Japanese yen, and main importantly US dollar. All the big banks of the globe, whether it is Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Standard Chartered, UBS, Barclays, Deutsche, HSBC, or name any bank, they have an exposure in all of these currencies. You name any hedge fund, all hedge funds are having exposure in all these currency covering all asset classes, which include FICC/C, that's our term, which is fixed income, currency, commodities and credit derivatives. No mutual fund in the globe can say that he do not have a single currency wherein he don't have an exposure, including Vanguard. So these currencies, once they move into fallback mechanism, then this fallback is very important. But this fallback will create an impact which is known as technological impact and functional impact. So the first side is the DLT framework, where we need a global consensus approach. The second side is the technology which is shaping up, which is artificial intelligence. Currently, the robo-advisory is shaping up. The registered investment advisors, shortly known as RIA, is turning out to be the dinosaur, and that too at a faster pace. The matter is very clear because people don't need them. It's all robo-advisory. That is a different thing, that people are not understanding that robo-advisory is working on a business model which need at least 5 to 10 years, and in some cases more than 10 years to get even break even, forget the profit. So sustainability of the robo-advisory is the biggest issue, and more importantly, the regulators are not competent enough to define or to codify it. Codified means in English, in writing, to codify the breaches we can have in the robo-advisory. You please open Google as and when you get time, and you see that not a single working paper is being written across the globe wherein we talking about the breaches in the robo-advisory. But venture capitalists are funding so much amount of money that they even do not thinking about that. End result, you all will get to know. So this creates a functional impact. Another side, whatever happening in functionally need to be backed up by the regulatory reporting, which is also known as reg reporting. That regulatory reporting is completely missing. Today we do not have regulatory reporting of any of these. Majority of the regulatory reporting we have across the globe is obsolete. Example, MAS 610. If you look at the recent notice by MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore 610, you will get to know that it is completely obsolete, and we definitely have a video tomorrow, probably, or maybe this week, coming week, when we let you know that where all MAS went wrong and what all mistake MAS committed. Trust me, it is full of mistakes. But I am not surprised, because now we dealt with MAS, we know that they looks like very competent, but they are not very competent, to be honest. In fact, Monetary Authority of Singapore do not have a YouTube channel. You can check yourself on YouTube. They claim to be a best central bank, but they don't have a YouTube channel. So in the part 1, we talked about the common consensus of DLT. In the part 1A, part 1AB, we talked about the functional changes. Now come the technological changes, which is artificial intelligence. There is no doubt that artificial intelligence is changing very fast. In fact, today, without quoting the name of the bank, I was talking to a senior trader of that bank, and he was saying that, Rahul, every morning we come in the office with the hope that our job is safe for tomorrow, because this bank is cutting like anything. If today I make a mistake and I end up having loss, 5 years ago the bosses used to come and say, be careful. But now bosses come and say that you're supposed to leave. In fact, he was telling me that in another 2 to 3 years, majority of the trading terminals across his bank would have a powered artificial intelligence. And that is happening specifically when the regulator himself do not know that how these algos work. Less like flash crash. A big thesis is being written on the flash crash. It is not the first time the flash crash happened, but still the flash crash cannot be stopped. So to cut the long discussion short, in the first part we need the consensus, and that consensus is completely missing. In the second part of the part 1, we need to understand the role and the changes in the technology which is happening because of the functional changes, which is happening because of the acceptance of these fallback rates. In the part C of part 1, multiple central banks across the globe are working on digital, which is central bank digital currency. Example, Project Ubin. Example, Project Jesper. Thailand government running its own project. According to the Bank for International Settlement survey, which is available in the public domain, more than 50 plus countries decided to launch their own digital currency in another 3 to 5 years, and a lot of countries are in the advanced stages to get the digital currency done. So the distributed ledger framework, also known as blockchain framework, needs to be holistic, but it is not the same. In part A, we definitely conclude that this holistic approach is completely missing because the functional changes are happening independently and DLT based framework is not ready. The technological changes, which is artificial intelligence, robo-advisory, algos, peer-to-peer network, and all these are happening, and robo-advice and DLT framework do not have any control on that. More importantly, in the first phase, we do not have a single regulatory body across the globe. Neither any country nor a set of country wanted to get this done. Who would control everything? That is why the Google CEO in Davos, he clearly said that we need a global body who control the artificial intelligence. And in the absence of a global body, everyone is a king in the globe. So just assume the globe, you have no court, you have no police, you have no government, everyone is a king. Then what would happen? Might is right. This is how, and this is exactly what is happening. This is part A. In this part B, we talked about a lot of issues about the DLT framework, the technical framework, but I personally conclude that DLT is good thing, blockchain is good thing, we need blockchain, but having said that, haste make waste. Without having common consensus, without having functional understanding of the blockchain, without having knowing completely that which part of the whole chain connects with whom and how, entering into the blockchain is a bigger mistake. I hope you like it. If you wish to be a part of our WhatsApp groups, if you wish to be a part of our daily derivative reporting, you're welcome to connect me. My number is +91 9899242978. My alternate number is +91 9818485155. Our fixed income platform, www.fixedincome.global. We'll see you in the part second. Part about the financial institution in the DLT framework for financial institution. We noted a lot of points, and few points are taken from multiple reports, and majority of the points are ours. We strongly feel that the DLT standards across the globe, which is distributed ledger technology standards across the globe, they are very, very fragmented. Example, the DLT standards in Singapore are different than what you have in London, while London standards are different than you have in Europe, and specifically when it comes to US. It's very important that the world should have a common regulatory body who not only have a common DLT standards but also have a common artificial intelligence based standards. Having said that, this is relatively very tough. We once again push forward the speech by Google CEO that we should have a global body about artificial intelligence. Now, when it comes to the different fragmented DLT based standard, it is very difficult to have a dream that the world financial industry will move to DLT. So when it comes to DTCC, Depository Trust Corporation, they can afford any amount for automation. When it comes to CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, they can afford any amount. When it comes to LME, London Metal Exchange, they can afford any amount. But there is a problem. The problem is that if the protocols of CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, do not talk with the LME, or LME do not talk with the LCH, with the Hong Kong Clear, with the SGX, then it would be a big mess, and that happened number of times. Like let's take a simple example. It is not the first time, or it is not going to be the first time when it would happen. Example, treasury management system. Treasury management system across the globe are led by two big companies. One is Murex and one is Calypso. That is a different thing, that both are legacy based product, and their products, like if you buy Murex or if you buy Calypso, then it requires huge customization. If you want, I can name any bank in Singapore. We know them personally, that they are facing severe issues from Murex because it requires a severe customization. And the biggest problem is that in case of little tweak here and there, the cost is always an issue. So majority of the people not been able to use their system in an appropriate way. Henceforth, the reporting, like reg reporting is not possible from Murex and Calypso. A part of the reg reporting is happening on Reuters, a part of reg reporting happening on Murex, and major part is happening outside the system. I will tell you that more or less the similar scene would happen with the DLT framework if common DLT based standards will not come into the picture, and for that regulators need to sit in between. And by the way, do not forget the cloud also, because currently everything is happening in a hard disk. I have a laptop, it is happening in the laptop. I have mobile phones, that's a different thing, that Apple phones offering the iCloud service. But when we talk about blockchain, DLT, we would surely be using the cloud architecture, which is known as cloud compounding. So standing today, Amazon having different framework, cloud compounding, Alibaba having different framework, cloud compounding, Google having different framework, Microsoft Azure is having different framework. That's a different thing, that all top four are having some part as common and some part as different. The example is USB. You buy any laptop of the globe, any company of the globe, you find the size of the USB similar. Just assume in 2020 the scene would be like that. The USB for Apple is different, USB for HP laptop is different, USB for Sony is different, Toshiba is different, maybe different companies is different. Then imagine a guy is carrying a box or maybe a bag wherein he carrying 20 USBs. Why? I have a HP laptop, this USB work. I have an Apple laptop, this USB will work. But most importantly, the good thing is that today you have common USB. Similarly, DLT based framework needs to be common, and fragmentation approach will never work. That we need to remember, else it would be a big mess of that would happen. Second is the IT standards. Standing today, the information technology standards worldwide are nowhere closer to the DLT based. Example, on paper we have CPA, Certified Public Accounting Body, which is American Institute of CPA. They teach SSA 16. Without quoting the name, I was looking at the website of one of the payment providers, without quoting the name, who got a big funding from some bank. And I got to know that at the end they mentioned that SOC 2 certified. I was very confused that why they are mentioning SOC 2 certified. Because SOC 1 means your own asset, SOC 2 means outsourced asset, SOC 3 means certification. Can I have one payment firm in the globe who can say that they do not have any asset of them? It means that the 100% of the asset which you own, which you are using, servers, computers, and all kind of platform, it is owned by others. And you are saying SOC 2? I thought, let me write to this company, then I decided, no, there is no need to write, to be honest. Well, I feel that the information technology standard currently, which we have, the IT audit standard, they are completely obsolete. Example, COBIT, Control Objective of Information and Related Technology. Example, SOC principle, which is Service Organization Control, which is further divided into three, SOC 1, SOC 2 and SOC 3. These IT principle needs to be amended, and that too at a much faster pace. According to me, the seriousness to amend these IT standards should be very fast if he really wishes to have a DLT framework for the young generation to come. Else it is impossible. Third, the institutions like NIST either they should change. NIST stands for National Institute of Standards, National Institute of Standard Technology. Basically, it's a US based body. I don't think they are anywhere compatible, and I don't think they are even closer to D of DLT. Forget artificial intelligence, forget cloud computing, according to me. And I'm ready to prove my point, by the way. Fourth is that when we're talking about DLT, we need a common consensus, and that common consensus is missing at a lot of places. We need to have this common consensus in place, which is definitely missing. Number 5, the hash functions. When we talk about DLT, we talk about crypto, right? We talk about crypto, and the major thing in crypto is the hash function. I should not tell you the data than history suggests that multiple exchanges of the globe, in fact, without quoting the name, one digital exchange who claim to be an exchange to buy or sell digital asset, they once again hacked very recently. Since the inception of Bitcoin, multiple exchanges of the globe, they're being hacked by a numerous amount, and that amount is not 1 million, 2 million, in some cases it is more than 50 million also. Having said that, we need, because the cryptographic hash function, which is basically a mathematical function that is having a fixed input, and in some cases it is also known as a compression function, these functions need to be amended. This is not a technical video. Sooner we are starting a video on the cryptography, but I feel that the hash functions need to be amended. More importantly, one important thing, that hash functions completely in the cryptography are complex. They are very much time consuming, and more importantly, they are obsolete, and the cyber security, they are definitely not proof. But who would be making changes in the cryptography hash functions? I don't know, because some blockchain networks are public, some are private, and some are blended. When I have a public blockchain, I have a public cryptographic functions. When I have a private blockchain, I have private function. When I have blended, I have blended function. Bitcoin is public blockchain. Anyone can use that. Android. Can I copy any code of OS X, which is an operating system owned by Apple, and use it for my purpose? I cannot until I have a written approval from Apple. I cannot do that. But having said that, can I use any code of Android? I can use that. Example, GitHub. GitHub is a place wherein there are several millions or maybe several thousands coders worldwide. They come at one platform and they write code and share. That's a different thing, that people like Sraj Rawal who copy the code from GitHub and claim that it is their code, but do not give a proper respect or proper acknowledgement to these developers. So everything is not GitHub. We need to understand that we have private blockchains, we have public blockchains, we have blended blockchains. When I was reading the working paper of this DTCC, I got to know they're talking about the cryptographic hash function. But considering DTCC, considering the size of DTCC, it is next to impossible to assume that they would have a private blockchain architecture. It would be too much to handle for DTCC compared to current situation. And it is also impossible to assume that they would have a private blockchain network. Then it is again too difficult to handle. So some part would be private, some part would be public. So more or less it would be a blended architecture which would be put up by the DTCC. But what percentage public? We don't know, because DTCC is the largest CSD player of the globe, and they are the CCP also. And it's not the only business DTC do. They have a huge business line. What part would be public, what part would be private, and how it works, we don't know today. For that, we need a common consensus. Example, if today, for a minute, I assume that DTCC comes on DLT. Anyways, it takes more than 2 years. It takes a humongous amount of money, an extraordinary effort, lot of approval from regulatory, and very precise approach. But for a minute, I assume that DTCC is on DLT. And DTCC wanted to talk to LCH. They wanted to talk to SGX. They wanted to talk to Hong Kong Clear. They wanted to talk about any other clearing forum in India or Southeast Asia, they are not on blockchain. So the only way to talk, they should be on the blockchain. But the question is, let's take one by one. DTCC, CCP is private blockchain. CME is public blockchain, or alternatively reverse. It's a public, it's a private, or reverse. The blendedness in case of DTCC is not telling me the blendedness in case of CME. Then it's a whole mess of. And why are we forgetting that cryptographic keys? Standing today, no regulator in this globe, no one in this globe can come and say that this cryptographic key is completely cyber security proof. Especially at a time when Alexa is being hacked. And how can we forget that few weeks ago, Amazon founder Mr. Jeff Bezos' mobile phone is being hacked. I'm not discussing about the controversy, the country behind that mobile phone hack, that's a different thing. But the moral of the story that even his phone, the richest man of the globe, the man who claimed to own Amazon, AWS, the man who claimed to own e-commerce and whatnot, his phone is being hacked. So cryptographic key hacking is nothing nowadays. Henceforth, the cryptographic hash function need to be carefully evaluated. They need to be carefully written. The complexity, the time consuming, and the space and the functionally obsolescence that we talk after a few minutes has to be resolved on an urgent note. Functional obsolescence means that you have a product which is functionally irrelevant. Example, this is an Apple phone. If I will put Apple 5 here and compare this with, this is iPhone X, this is iPhone 11. If I compare iPhone X, say iPhone 5 with iPhone 11, then this is functionally obsolescence. Because iPhone X, iPhone 5 don't have a Face ID. It do not have a passcode. There are so many things which iPhone 5 do not have, which we have in iPhone 11. Right? The processor speed and whatnot. The camera and all these kind of stuff. So functionally obsolescence thing we need to see. And who would be controlling the functionally obsolescence? Regulator. But are regulator really interested to take that role? I doubt. Are they literate to take that role? I once again doubt. Or anytime they invited to take that role? I again doubt. Henceforth, DLT framework in case of financial institution is definitely not easy. At least for me. Another issue is, which is very important, issues with the consensus mechanism, which means the validation rules. More importantly, we need to discuss about operational framework also. I don't know how many of you know, not we have a body called ORX. It's a body in the financial market which hold a taxonomy of the various risks. To an extent, I disregard with their few taxonomy, but majority of the taxonomy is correct. Although, when it comes to DLT, the designer will take care of the market risk, it will take care of pricing risk, it will take care of interest rate risk and whatnot. But at the same point of time, the most important thing he need to face is the operational risk. Without quoting the name, in 2019, multiple European banks fined by a huge amount because of lapses in operational risk. And few American banks, without quoting the name, also fined due to lapses in operational risk. In fact, few custodians worldwide also fined heavily because of lapses in operational risk. We have a taxonomy which is ET1, which dealt with internal fraud. ET2, which dealt with external fraud. ET3, employee related fraud. ET4, clients, product and business practices. It's very easy to say client and products. Clients are always cross-border, multinational. Products are humongous. CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, clients are worldwide and one is talking to you. Chicago Mercantile Exchange product are humongous. They need a diary to write their complete products. ET4, careful. ET5, disasters, which is man-made. ET6, technology and infrastructure, very easy to say. The technological and infrastructure setup of a custodian is completely different than we have of a bank. Completely different than we have of a bank. But more importantly, are we ready for that? I don't think so. ET7, transaction and processing. How can we forget that in 2008 financial crisis, multiple banks come into the picture and said that they made severe mistakes in transaction and processing. And by the way, flash crash, which is very unique, fall into technological infrastructure and transaction processing. So the moral of the story is very clear that operational risk need to be considered. The global body in the financial market, which is ORS, who maintain the taxonomy, they should be taken into consideration. Till what extent ORX can be taken into consideration, we don't know. In the whole paper suggested by DTCC, nowhere they have mentioned about this taxonomy. Nowhere they mentioned about this taxonomy. Rather, they mentioned about multiple DLT frameworks, which we have. Example, few pertains to vendor management, few pertains to transaction systems, security coding, smart contracts, governance compliance, identification authorization access, financial performance and matrices, business continuity, cryptographic key management, incident management, maintenance operations, node user, network consensus, and data and information integrity. Let me go one by one. Vendor management. Reuters, Bloomberg, transactions, billions of transactions at one go. System, treasury management systems, softwares, hardware, servers, smart contracts. Even today, no one can come in public domain and say that smart contract is rightfully defined. Sure, we have a lot of videos about smart contracts when we talk about Project to Beam. Identification and authorization access. History is a witness that many custodians worldwide face severe fines and losses due to unauthorized identification and authorization. You can check on the Google. Financial performance and matrices. There are humongous amount of financial performance and matrices we have across the globe. Business continuity planning. Coronavirus. One coronavirus put the whole globe on standstill. Multiple supply chain lines across the globe are shut down. Automobile companies stopped their production. Even Apple issued a warning to its customer that the production may halted. Nothing is being imported into China and nothing is being exported outside China. I don't know when this virus would resolve, but it might take few months, and by the time the whole supply chain of the globe would be shut down, and it would be a big mess up. Even the basic items to survive would be outside the scope of most of the pocket, outside the pocket of most of the people. Incident management. Do I need to tell you about the incident management? How many incidents did happen in the world of financial management, flash crashes and all? How would you rectify that? It's not there. Node user, operations, maintenance, and most importantly, network and data security. By the way, if I have Murex today, which is my treasury management system, or Calypso today, which is my treasury management system, or for a minute, let's talk about big boys like Goldman and JP, those who have their prop systems. Can I connect the prop system with the DTCC, who is on DLT? I cannot. I cannot. These issues need to be answered holistically. But we are not answering that. But unfortunately, many central banks, for the sake of marketing, one is heading to Project Ubin, one is heading to Project Jasper, Hong Kong is doing something, and now DTCC coming into the picture, and God knows somebody else would come into the picture later. Which will definitely create a mess of. I'm sure 110% it will create a mess of. The story do not end here. Rather, in the part 3, one more story come into the picture, which is the risk oversight function. And ALCO, Asset and Liability Committee. Every big player like DTCC, LCH, CNS, SGX, they have a risk oversight function. That's a different thing. That risk oversight function is a formality, and precisely speaking they do nothing. That is also a fact. But how the risk oversight function would be designed, because it would be covering education, it would be covering about risk management, it would be covering about BCP, business continuity planning, it would be covering about cyber defense, which not yet discussed in detail, it would be covering about valuation, trainings, reg reporting. Can I have one regulator right now who can come in the public domain and say that I have a reg reporting designed as per blockchain? Boss, Monetary Authority of Singapore MS 610, you go and check their reporting standard, it is nowhere even closer to blockchain. First of all, they are having lot of functional mistake which we definitely would be pointing in one of the YouTube channel dedicated to that, and none of their reporting is even closer to blockchain. So today if DTCC having a substantial presence in Singapore also, if DTCC for a minute will come under the purview of 610, because they are dealing with banks a lot, that also everyone knows that, then their reg reporting is nowhere closer to blockchain. But today no one is talking because everyone is busy in the fancy thing. No one is talking about how reg reporting can be linked with the blockchain. And most importantly, reg reporting is also one of the area where people have no consensus. Like yesterday we shooted a video that no one talked about fundamental review of the trading book and the RegTech in the last 1 year. People were busy talking it about payments, and now they got another fancy term which is neo-banking. And last but not the least, how they would be tackling the FR, the fundamental, which is financial data reference provider, which is Reuters and Bloomberg. Reuters and Bloomberg act as a financial data reference provider. They have their EMS, execution management systems. They have their OMS, which is order management systems. They have their FX platform like FXall, TradeWeb. So as Bloomberg, how you would be integrating with the blockchain? There are hell lot of issues that need to be answered by these bodies before moving or thinking about DLT framework. The white paper which DTCC mentioned in the public domain is completely shallow. It even not touched the tip of an iceberg, which according to me they should have touched. And I don't know how come they committed this mistake. To cut the long discussion short, we feel that the fragmented standards of DLT needs to have one consensus. Rather than having multiple bodies, we need one body, just like we have IASB, International Accounting Standard Board, for IFRS. The current IT standards, just like COVID Control Objective of Information Technology and SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 is completely useless even in the current context. Forget blockchain, artificial intelligence and cloud computing. We are talking about a setup whereby DLT and non-DLT base can talk. We not yet talked about that. We talked about in part 3. The current standards by NIST, National Institute of Standards Technology, is definitely not compatible, that we all know. Cryptographic hash functions, they are too complex, they are time consuming, they are obsolescence and also having functional obsolescence. They needs to be corrected as early as possible. But I don't know there is any effort being put. We need to decide and agree that functional block how much percentage would be public blockchain, private blockchain or hybrid blockchain. We don't know about that. There is no unique. DTCC cannot be 100% private, cannot be 100% public, it has to be blended. But that percentage definitely not apply to LME, which is London Metal Exchange, and do not apply to CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Then how they would be interacting? Today everyone is interacting because the rules are set. The operational risk taxonomy needs to be considered. ET1, internal fraud; ET2, external fraud; ET3, employee related fraud; ET4, client products and business practices; ET5, disasters; ET6, technology and infrastructure; ET7, transaction and processing. DLT frameworks for various like vendor management, transaction systems, smart contracts and all needs to be completely integrated with across the globe. And last but not the least, every big organization needs to have a risk oversight function. that risk oversight function needs to be completely defined in a highly standardized way, which is again not the scene. So it's very easy to say that the financial institutions are moving to a DLT based framework, but I don't think they are moving. They even not yet touched the tip of an iceberg. This is about part 2. You are welcome to connect us in any of mobile number, which is +91 9899242978. My alternate number is 9818485155. You are welcome to visit our fixed income platform www.fixedincome.global. Have a great time. Welcome to the part 3 of the video about DLT networks. In the part 3, the major issue we need to see is basically asset and liability committee. Every big organization of the globe, whether this is CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, whether this is a bank, it's a financial institution or a hedge fund, they always have a asset and liability committee. That's a different thing that even after asset and liability committees, the bank failed, and we saw repeatedly after 2008. And the latest example we have on which we're going to shoot a video is the RBS bank. But still, considering that DTCC, which is a very large organization, and they did pretty well, to be honest, we really need to see that, till what extent the asset and liability committee to be formulated. I know there is already an asset and liability committee which is there in the DTCC, but since we are talking about the tokenization of the asset, we are talking about the blockchain, we are talking about the usage of artificial intelligence, machine learning and all these, how in the digital framework the asset and liability committee would work, that we need to see. Once again, a very important question will come, because the guidelines for asset and liability committee will come from regulator. Example, DTCC is an American setup, so the regulator, and they are having business everywhere across the globe. They do have business in Singapore, London, Europe, US, a very small in India as well. So we really need to see that how this business will shape it up, and how asset and liabilities committee will actually shape it up. In this, we need to have following issues to be raised. Number 1, the curve setting of the liabilities, how it would come on blockchain, I don't know, because like I told you that in 2018 when I went to Singapore FinTech Festival, I saw many, at least 2 or 3 startups, those who claim that they able to make the FX trading on blockchain. In fact, few claim that they can even have integrated with the Murex. But in 2019 I not saw even single of that. In fact, they were also not returned. And without quoting the name, I don't tell you where are they, but I have checked on the Google. It's very sad, to be honest. Secondly, in asset and liability committee, the reg reporting would definitely be an issue. The acceptance of reg reporting is an issue. The curve fitting is an issue, and there are a lot of other issues. Holistically speaking, it is good that DTCC came up with a API based platform, application programming interface. There is no doubt about that. It's a good approach. It's good that they are coming up with a working paper. It is good that a leading CCST, Central Security Depository, around who is also a CCP, is coming up with an innovation of blockchain. But it is pretty difficult to see that that lot of issues which are pertinent in nature are being oversighted in the working paper. Alongside, the main and most important thing like operational risk is, I think, completely taken at granted. With these issues, we closing our remarks. We feel that distributed ledger technology, blockchain, is very good. Functions are very time consuming. Cryptography needs to be revised, and more importantly, we need a holistic support, especially from regulators. I have hardly seen any success of regulator as far as the blockchain is concerned. Project Ubin is one of them. Project Jasper we need to see. We will of course deliberate on that soon. Project done by the Hong Kong government is also an issue. So situation is pretty bad. Situation is in a messy shape. And considering all these, till what extent the DLT framework could be applicable in the financial institution, we need to see. To close the long discussion short, there is one more advice which I need to give to the people, to the young kids, those who are passing out from the colleges or those who are doing multiple degree programs, just like CFA, Certified Financial Analyst, not Chartered Financial Analyst, FRM, Faltu Risk Management, Chartered Accountant and all. An advice to them is to have a holistic understanding of the cryptography, because we need to appreciate one fact that sooner or later the whole world would be digitized. Tokenization is going very fast. That's a different thing, that few digital platforms working good and multiple not. And in fact, majority of the digital platforms are heavily backed by the venture capitalist. That is also a different thing, that initial coin offering which started from Singapore got a hype, many people got looted and regulator is silent just like beaver. But still I request the people and especially the young kids to have their energy focused on the cryptography. But learning cryptography is definitely not easy. Importantly, I request people to have their focus on digital securities offering, which is DSO, to have a focus on digital assets, the digital asset platforms and how it is getting traded. Probably another 2 to 3 years down the line, the whole world would be on DLT, but this definitely won't be successful till an extent the people thought of. So we need to work in a very rightful way. Let's see how it shape up. This is our vision about DLT. We keep focusing a lot of issues about DLT and on our YouTube channel. You know our mobile number, you know our fixed income platform. But thank you very much and have a great time.